All right, so now this one it wants us to figure out what is the value at g equals -4. Well, technically I could tell you the answer because it's going to be this first function. But we're going to graph it just to check and see. So I'm going to graph this two ways. The first way I'm going to graph is on the graphing calculator. So go ahead and let's plug this in. Remember to graph it on the graphing calculator. Remember that when you take the cube root of something, that's the same as raising it to the third power. So I can do that. Yeah, let's just do that. So, but I got a double parentheses here. So I got to put in parentheses x plus 5 parentheses. Now I've got to raise that to the 1 divided by 3, close that, and then parentheses. So I do that because I have to put in the domain restrictions. So then I'm going to say x, I got to hit second math, less than or equal to, x is less than or equal to. Now remember, this is a -4. I'm not subtracting 4 from something, so I use the negative symbol on the calculator. Plus, the second part of the piecewise function, that has to go in parentheses, negative x squared plus 11. And then I have to set in the domain restriction on that one. That's going to be x second math greater than -4. Okay, close my parentheses. Hit graph, see what we're working with. Oh, that's kind of crazy. So let's zoom out and get a look at what's going on here. So this is what we call a jump discontinuity. It can occur I'm going to choose zoom fit. That didn't work out. We'll just do the standard zoom. So this is a jump discontinuity because the piecewise function, the way that it's set up, it doesn't line up. You know what I mean? It doesn't line up. So let me take a picture of this and we'll put it in the Jamboard notes for later. So this thing right here, this is for all the values less than or equal to -4, this is this function, this part right here. That is the cube root of x plus 5. Okay? This section right here. Technically, because I have this equal sign, this is defined at -4 here. Now, for the second part of the piecewise function, this part right here, this is our quadratic, right? So this part of my function that comes from, because it's x is greater than -4, that comes from -x squared plus 11. However, this is not defined here. This is an open circle. Your graphing calculator doesn't make it an open circle, but it's an open circle. So this is kind of a trick question. Well, what is the value of this thing? Well, one way that we could find out is we could look it up in the table of values, but the truth is, and by the way, this is still a function. It passes the vertical line test. If I draw a vertical line through x equals -4, it's only going to cross one time right here. Okay? It's going to cross the graph, but it only crosses right here because technically this is not defined. So it's still a function. Okay? But the question is, what is the value? Well, the value is whatever this is right here. In other words, if I evaluate this at x equals 4, and we can do that real quick, the cube root of, or at -4, -4 plus 5 is equal to the cube root of, what's that, 1? The cube root of 1. Well, what number do I multiply or raise to the third power that equals 1? That's just 1, right? So C is the answer, but how do we verify that? Well, we go into our calculator and we look at the table of values. And we just scroll up until we get to -4. So even though the graph is what we call a jump discontinuity, which means that it isn't one continuous line, you have to remove your pencil. In other words, if I were to draw this, I'd have to lift my pencil up and start down further. It's still a function, and it is definitely defined at -4, right? But it's defined by the first expression and not the second. So if we look at this, it's defined by this. Okay. All this other stuff from here on up, this is all this function. From here going this way, that's the cube root of all that stuff. Now, real quick, I'm going to graph this. I just want to show you guys how to graph this on the Desmos calculator if you're at home. This is very similar to the TI calculator. We're just going to define the domain first. So the first one would be x is less than or equal to -4. The expression is the cube root. So I'm just going to put in parentheses x plus 5. Raise that to the 1 divided by 3. And then I have x is greater than -4. And then I have to plug in that part of the function, which is just negative x squared plus 11. Somewhere I hit something wrong. Oh, I see why. I gotta plug that in. There we go. Same thing here. If I click right here, it's defined. See how that's defined? But if I come down here, I'll get really close, but it'll never be defined at 4. It'll see when now if I move a little bit to the left, it's going to jump to the other function. So when I come up here and I click on it, I'll get it that way. Okay? Oh, wow, that took